Hey, this is Tom Morrissey from the New York City band Kill Code. Kill Code is myself, lead vocals, Chaz and DC Gonzalez on guitars, Rob Noxious on drums, and Bobby Flores on bass. Here to talk a bit about our new release, Life, Death, Rock and Roll, produced by Joey Z, who's also the guitar player for Life of Agony and also has been part of Stereo Mud and Carnivore. And thanks again for having me.
Hi there, Tom. Thanks for joining us today, brother. So, as you say, man, like Kill Code released your third full-length album, Life, Death, Rock and Roll, in late January, bro. So, how's the early reception been for it?
Well, like you mentioned, we just released it last month. So far, so great. I think our friends and fans were hungry to hear some new music from us. It's been a while, especially coming out of COVID and the lockdown. It was refreshing for us to release something new. And so far, like I mentioned, everybody seems to be really into it.
So, tell us a bit more about the album from a musical point of view, mate, and what you were going for with it.
This album, we weren't really going for anything in specifically, as we never really do. We just write naturally, whatever comes naturally, we go with. We definitely explored a little bit more sonically on this album. It's a little more mature. We used some different instrumentation, some piano. Overall, I think the songwriting in general is a little more mature, but it's still, straight ahead, rock and roll, high energy. You have your rockers, your ballads, some introspective songs, some personal songs, and some drinking songs.
Drinking songs, who doesn't like those, bro? So, as you mentioned, like it is your third album after your self-titled in 2012 and then The Answer in 2018. So, how would you say the band has changed and grown musically over those three albums?
Well, I think the first album that we released was basically a collection of where we had been and where we were going up until that point from the beginning of the band. We released a couple EPs prior to the first full-length album, and I think we kind of nailed the direction and the style and the sound that we were going for up until that point with the first album. The Answer was a bit different because it came with the addition of DC Gonzalez replacing Pat on guitar. While both are great guitar players, DC definitely gave us a shot in the arm we needed as far as reinvigorating us, and the sound of that album definitely is a reflection on DC coming into the fold. And we just explored a little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
This album opens with a cool little intro piece that starts with sort of static before the band plays an acoustic number over that static sound. So, what was the thought process behind that?
Again, not a lot of thought process behind it. That sound snippet was just basically sort of like a fly on the wall. Joey had the mic on while the guys were sitting in the studio, filling around, waiting for me to get to the studio. We had heard it back on a playback of another track and thought it was funny and thought it sounded cool. And I think it was Chaz that said we should use that as an intro to you know a song, not necessarily to the album, but to a song. And it ended up being an intro to the album.
Fair call, brother. So, Life, Death, Rock and Roll was created during the COVID period, mate. So, how did you guys go find an inspiration musically, I guess, like in a period where there wasn't much to do except watch Netflix and the news?
Yeah, that can be difficult, and luckily for us, at least half the album was written prior to COVID, not recorded, but written prior, and that kind of gave us a springboard, and also gave us something that we had to finish and a goal to reach for and to continue working on. We did end up writing and finishing writing the album during COVID and recording most of it. But yeah, having some of it written going into COVID definitely was a help for us to continue and finish it. Most of the songs that were written during COVID, well, I shouldn't say most, but some of the songs that were written during COVID definitely reflect some personal moments that we were all going through, personal losses that we were going through. And listening to the album, I think some of it's pretty obvious to make out, some of it's not, but I like to leave that up to the listener to decipher.
Now, I know the band also did some live stream concerts during that COVID period, and I know a few bands actually did that at the time, mate. But looking back, do you think those sort of things helped the band at all coming through the other side?
Well, for us, we always like to keep busy. It was definitely a blessing to have the live streams, even for us to do, because it not only were our fans able to connect with us again, but we were able to connect with them. And as much as we like rehearsing and playing with each other in the rehearsal room, there's nothing like having an audience. And even though the audience was virtual, it still was better than nothing. So it definitely kept us going, and it definitely helped. I can't say it added to anything other than maybe the desire to really get back out there when this was all over and play to an actual crowd.
Yeah, bro, I bet you it's nice to actually have something out there and be doing something, but there's nothing like playing in front of that live crowd, for sure. And on the album, mate, you also feature a cover of You Can't Stop Rock and Roll by Twisted Sister. Now, it's a great song, bro, but why choose that one particularly to cover?
Well, aside from being a kick-ass rock song that we fucking love, Twisted Sister gave us the opportunity to tour all over the world for the first time. We were blessed and lucky enough to go on their last 40 and Fuck It world tour. They took us all over Europe and Mexico, and we actually got to sing the song on stage with them. So what a better way for us to pay homage to them and show our respects and also play a kick-ass song was to do that. And we also had the opportunity to also tour with Dee when he went on his solo tour. So yeah, that's the history behind that.
So speaking of history, mate, Kill Code formed back in 2008. So what was the musical climate like back then that gave birth to the band, and where did you fit in initially?
Well, that was quite a while ago, but at the time, I would say the music scene, if you want to call it that, was kind of all over the place. Pop music was all over the radio waves and MTV, and you basically had your Britney Spears and your boy bands, and it wasn't a lot of room for rock music at the time. There was some. We kind of were under the radar and just kind of put our nose to the grind and did what we do best, which is what we like to do, not what anybody tells us that we should sound like. We stuck to our guns, and here we are now.
So what was your early vision for the band, mate, and how has it changed since?
The early vision of the band was just to not reinvent the wheel, but just to write some solid, great songs that meant something to us and hopefully means something to other people. We like to think ourselves as a high energy live rock band, so we want the songs and the music to come across that, give that energy, get that energy across. And the only thing that's changed since then, I would say, was we just have been even more focused on the songwriting, and we get bored easy, so making it interesting for us, and in turn, in doing that, we hope it makes it even more interesting for the listener.
All of the band members come from other established projects, mate. So how did you decide how much of those bands' sound would work when settling on what direction you wanted Kill Code to move in musically?
Well, again, there's not a lot of thought process behind it, and we didn't have a lot of ideas of what we wanted to sound like exactly. I think having the members of the band all coming from similar but different styles of rock music and vibes add to our sound and makes it what is the Kill Code sound now. We each add our own different flavor and style to a song, and it's kind of the amalgamation of all of us is the Kill Code sound.
Kill Code now has an international agency partner in Collier Entertainment, mate, who have got you guys a few gigs outside of the US. So have they talked about bringing you over to this side of the world yet?
Yes, they have, and working on it, and we hope to do it very soon.
Can't wait for that one, brother. It'd be good to catch up with you guys in the flesh for sure. So aside from that, man, what else you got planned for the rest of 2023 and beyond?
To keep on supporting Life, Death, Rock and Roll with local shows, also touring overseas and in Mexico. We also plan to do several more music videos behind the album. And as always, we're always writing. We're already about 5 or 6 songs into the next release, which could be an EP and an album. We're not sure yet. But yeah, more songs, more shows, more videos, more Kill Code.
All right, John, well, thanks very much for your time today, bro. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Life, Death, and Rock and Roll is out now, and she's an absolute banger and album, mate, and hopefully we see you over this side of the world very shortly indeed.
Thanks a lot, Chris, for having me. I appreciate the support present and in the past, and thanks so much for helping us spread the code.